going to go straight away to both of those participants and ask them to say a little bit about themselves. And in particular, I'd like to start with Peter. Over to you.
Hi, my name's Peter Lane. I'm oh goodness, you'd think I'd know the basic things like what I do and where I live, but I live in Manurewa. I'm a consultant in communication systems, but the real reason I'm here is that the Methodist Church kindly sent me to a seminar in Geneva a couple of years ago, or twisted my arm, and I actually managed to do the rest of the convincing. And we did a session through the World Council of Churches on eco-theology, in particular what could be done about yeah, this is getting difficult because the seminar wasn't actually about what we're going to talk about. It's really almost got that way by the end of it. On theology and justice and something or other else that I can't remember just off the top of my head, which just proves that I'm not organised.
Oh, that's quite okay. Okay, flipping over to David Hill. I'd like to say where you're from, David, and what you do and why you're in tonight's discussion.
Well, I'm from the shaky city of Christchurch. Well, not so shaky these days, but you're live from a new house that's been kindly rebuilt by our insurance company after 5.5 years waiting.
Well, it's fantastic that you finally got it. But what a painful process you've been through, and thousands of other people in Christchurch too. So our hearts go out to you on that one.
Absolutely, it's been a long journey, but we're getting there. But it's also allowed us to reflect on what else is going on in our lives, and I took the opportunity while I was rebuilding to go out and do something different. Go out and set myself some challenges, do some walks, and engage with churches, and raise some money for good causes. And I guess the reason why you've invited me along tonight is because I've decided to go even bigger and better next year.
Well, I think that's incredible, because your Walk for the Planet blog, for those of us that read it and followed it, it was quite inspirational. Now, see, we've got a couple of viewers with us, and I'd just like to say to those viewers that if you want to feed questions in, you'll see there's a little button Q&A that you can just click. It takes a couple of seconds to load, and then you can make comments or put questions in as we go along. I'd just like to bring up a screen share to tell you what we're going to be asking David and Peter tonight. So what we're really on about here are these questions: what is Green Church and associated things? What happens in practice and associated things? And what are the resources? So those are our big themes tonight, 3 questions. And I'll be asking each of these guys to talk about them in their different ways. And so let's, without any further ado, ask what is Green Church? Over to you, Peter Lane.
Oh, that's a multivariable question and can be interpreted a number of ways. At the seminar that I alluded to when I so embarrassingly introduced myself, one of the things that we learnt about as New Zealanders in a group of international participants was that the rest of the world has got, or a substantial part of the rest of the world has got a movement called Green Church. It started in Scandinavia, where it's not actually called Green Church, it's called Grønnkirke, but which, when you translate it, means Green Church. So that sort of naming has stuck and has almost become like a brand. The basic principle that is that they needed, or they wanted to establish a way of resourcing local congregations to make a difference with their in their context, in a meaningful context eco-theologically, but also a practical context from a community point of view and from what I call sustainability, the basically doing things right the first time and not using things that you can't replace in the process. So
okay, I think that's a really interesting lead in, because Green Church is about making churches sustainable organisations. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, that's a large part of it. Green things have had a real workout in the secular community, to the point that people are starting to avoid green things now, and I guess that can still be true of the label Green Church, but it's not trying to be a prescription the way a lot of other secular types of green rating schemes or whatever are. It's not focused on any one particular area. So Green Star is a rating system for buildings in New Zealand and some other places. The Green Church is, yes, it's a rating system, but it's not focused on building, or it's not focused on energy, it's not focused on water in the same sense that the secular schemes seem to be. It's very much more holistic, so it has a spiritual element as well. And in the context of the life of the church or a congregation, it also has a worship context.
Right, that's a really great answer. It's got all the Christian components as well as the green components. I wonder if I said to you, David Hill, Green Church, would you be able to tell me why that's important?
Well, I think it's all part of our caring for creation. I mean, we look at the Bible that we're told to be good stewards. But we've also, more importantly, I think we've got our children to think about. We've got our children and their grandchildren, that they're going to inherit the earth, and you know, it's what are we going to leave for them? What's our legacy for our children?
Yeah, what an important thing that people need to get hold of. It's not about just us now. It's about those who come after us, isn't it?
Absolutely.
David, you've been a great advocate over the years that I've known you about the problems associated with climate change and the man-made aspects of climate change, but it also goes far beyond that, doesn't it? It's pollution in general. We're stuffing up the waterways, particularly around the area that you live in the Canterbury Plains. And you're also, besides being a church journalist, you're also a journalist for farming magazines. Is that right?
Well, yes, 2 rural community newspapers. So yes, I do get to hear different sides of the story. Living in the city as well, it's quite an interesting. You hear the city sort of aspect of it, and when I'm not working, and in work hours, I'm hearing the farmer's perspective, telling how they're not polluting the rivers. And I guess in some cases, some of them aren't, but certainly the evidence would suggest that there's more work that needs to be done.
Well, particularly with the amount of pollutants flowing into something like Lake Taupo. You know, it's pretty well monitored. What about your perspective on this, Peter? How do you see not just climate change issues, but, you know, the great pile of rubbish that Auckland seems to be, you know, its growth implies also the growth of rubbish and the growth of pollution that comes through the building of all of those houses. Do you have a perspective on that?
I don't know. The climate change issue is one that ties back pretty clearly to an eco-theological perspective. in fact, that's one of the things that the seminar that we attended very clearly did not have climate change issues on the agenda, but by the end of the seminar we were all talking climate change issues as the preeminent example of the things that we were supposed to be. And in some senses, the whole climate change issue and relocation of displaced peoples and things like that took over what we were really supposed to talk about. But in another sense, it didn't matter because it was actually a clearly related topic. In terms of closer to home and the piles of rubbish that Auckland seems to manage to produce, Auckland's rubbish problem is probably not actually out of proportion with other cities of a similar size. There are certainly some issues around the logistics of getting rubbish away from Auckland. And there are probably some issues around end use, the efficiency of recycling efforts. To put it a little bit more shortly, so ensuring that as much as possible of recyclable materials that end up in the waste stream actually end up being recycled and don't get missed and end up in the lowest common denominator landfill somewhere. So it is going to be a front of mind for a lot of Auckland organisations, because the council is starting the process of completely redesigning the waste collection and management systems for the city, partly as a consequence of the amalgamation they went through a few years ago, but also partly because there's a desire in some quarters of the council to make sure that they do the best they can, and that's to be applauded. But the implication on that for a lot of churches is going to be, well, the clearest example I think I can, that after my church service at Manuera this morning, there was 10 minutes spent in the car park by various members of the congregation distributing rubbish bags into the back of people's cars so that they could take them home and put them out in the rubbish, because the church is no longer entitled to a rubbish collection.
Now that's fascinating. When you, what is that?
In Manurewa's case, it's a quirk of geography, and we're sitting in a business zone. But the way things are going, it will become much more widely spread. The council will be reducing the people eligible for free rubbish collection, and in a lot of cases in the past that has been church buildings. So and then it means that the church either has a choice of either paying whatever the going rate the council decides is for that, or coming up with a scheme such as what Manurewa was doing at the moment and redistributing rubbish for collection elsewhere.
But when you were doing Walk for the Planet, which we'll come to in a few seconds, David Hill, did you sense that the people that you were in contact with weekend by weekend up and down round from Christchurch and environs, were they concerned that the church should be moving towards being a green church?
Are you talking about Walk for the Planet in 2009 or my own initiative, Walk for the Others this year?
Yeah, Walk for the Others this year.
Oh, yeah, that wasn't a specific focus on green churches as per se. So it was more just raising awareness of that there are other people out in the world who are struggling. I mean, I was particularly looking at Haiti and because they've had an earthquake similar to Christchurch and in Tonga and in the Philippines, who have all had natural disasters like Christchurch has, and they're facing climate change issues too, because I mean Tonga, for example, they were fundraising to build rainwater harvest tanks, so they have some pretty big issues to tackle that some we couldn't even imagine what it's like.
Right, but as you went around, the people that you were in contact with, they saw the importance of the church becoming involved and in raising awareness amongst themselves and becoming motivated to do things.
Yes, I think so, and I think that the earthquakes has shown what sort of role the churches can play, whether it be in green churches or whether it be in disaster recovery. The church has played a big part in that, and that got recognised by the authorities even.
Yeah.
Yeah, because people like Christian World Service actually had experience in disaster zones. A lot of the official people actually have been trained, but they hadn't actually been in the disaster zone, whereas some of the Christian World Service staff have.
Okay, that leads very naturally to I think the biggest issue that we've got to discuss tonight is that how do churches actually get involved? What are the practical implications? I'm sorry that I confuse Walk for the Planet with Walk for Others.
Oh, that's all right.
That seems to me a very practical step that you and a group of supporters were able to get behind. But both of you, if you're able to tell me, how hard is it for church groups to start to become more ecologically aware and focused?
Who's going first?
Yeah, your picture's up, David.
My picture's up there, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a lot of things. People are often suspicious of the churches, but I think when you find a common cause, then sometimes it can be quite easy to engage people. It just depends on where you're coming from and how you present it to people, I think.
When it was post-earthquake and Mark Gibson started raising awareness of the importance of the rivers running through and what did he call it? River of Life Church?
The River of Life Project.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's a really good example because, you know, he started a Facebook page and at the same time there was another group that had started on Facebook called the Avon Atakaru Network, and that had already got to 1,000 likes in a very short space of time before Mark even signed up to it, and before we knew it, it had 2,000 likes, and Mark decided, well, hang on a minute, this is all very well, we're having great discussion here, but you know, what's a Facebook discussion going to do? And so the River of Life Project actually organised a public meeting where 50 people came to and led to the Avon Atakaru network actually being a proper network and not just a Facebook group. And that became a strong advocate for the, you know, protecting particularly the Avon River, and was ultimately responsible in getting $15 million from the government to help clean up the river. And that was really pushed by the River of Life Project in the background.
Yeah, well, I mean, what a fantastic outcome from a group of people who suddenly got serious about taking responsibility for the environment in a time of disaster. Because that
was taking a common issue, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a common issue. Yeah.
That's a large part of the rationale behind Green Church taking a community approach. We don't want to set up. I'm going to be careful how I say this. We're not trying to set up some sort of national project or national program that tells people what to do. We're trying to the national and framework part of Green Church is to resource and support, encourage and affirm the local initiatives that people do in the local areas. And just a slight tangent on that, but relating to some of the stuff that was said earlier, a large part of the experience in Europe was that the community, a key thing with a church deciding to be a green church, meant that they suddenly became much more visible to their community because of they were doing things like putting solar panels on church properties, which meant that they were setting an example to the community, and then anybody in the community that wanted to drive an issue that came to the church as being somebody who was obviously interested in these things and might be able to help. So that's how a lot of the community initiatives started in the European experience, that after the church started and did something as a exemplar, it actually attracted the community to come to them with real issues.
That's helpful, because in the same way, just in a couple of years before the Berlin Wall came down, the Lutheran churches, well, in fact, I think all the churches became kind of networks in East Germany to bring about the change, as it were. So though they couldn't be quite as visible as that, in a way, there was an understanding that if you were going to tackle the problems that had arisen as a result of that wall, as a result of the sort of separation of East and West in that city, you needed a network, and the network already existed amongst the churches. And Peter Matheson, the church historian down at Otago University in the Presbyterian world as well, he has fascinating insights into the way in which the church took the stand. Now, do you see parallels between that and what could be done in Green Church?
Who are you asking?
Open.
Open. Okay. I think there is. Certainly in other parts of the church in the Pacific, there is some of the people we met have got a very clear agenda that they wanted to ensure that there is some justice happens around global climate change in terms of displaced peoples in particular, and that the network is, in the sense that is a local issue for some people, the network will support that. The Green Church network will support that. But that doesn't mean that it's the be-all and end-all. As I said previously, it's about enabling local congregations to make a difference locally. If there is value in putting some degree of coordination across that as it happens, then yeah, we'll look at doing it. But we're not actually looking at making a rod for people's backs to say that you've got to jump through this hoop 3 times before we will consider you part of what we're doing.
Right. David Hill, you sent through the 48 measures, if you like. Peter and I were discussing this just prior to coming live on air, and I think that's what he's saying. He doesn't necessarily think that it's the best idea to say, oh, you've got to comply with these 48 points. But we thought that what could be very helpful for people to get a practical understanding of Green Church was to just highlight the headings. Now, the first and foremost thing is sitting at the top of your list, which you and Mark Gibson.
Well, yeah, we have an environmental group at New Brighton Union Church here that's put it together.
Right. So
led by Mark here.
David, can I just give a little bit of context about these 48 points?
Yep.
The 48 points is actually based on a model that we unashamedly stole from the Grand Kirk movement in Denmark, and which is quite similar to the others. And it's also very similar to other sustainability rating tools for the secular world, in the sense that there are categories of things and that give, within those categories there are a number of possibilities for you to do, but there is nothing within the whole framework that says you have to do every single one. It's to give you a range of options. In fact, in a lot of the rating systems, there are actually things that are mutually exclusive. If you are going to save energy but still have some sort of air conditioning system, even though it may be a special one that meets all the criteria, then you're probably not going to save your energy. But so that's the framework. There is a rating component, but it's more about starting the process of people thinking about it, rather than so in that sense it's a means to an end rather than an end in itself.
Yeah, I noticed that it says that you would try to achieve 2 from each category, not that you try to achieve.
So the categories are there to ensure that you have a spread of that your thoughts are spread across the spectrum, and you're not sort of saying, yes, we think that energy saving is really easy in our context, so we're going to ignore all the other things but just do energy saving. Yeah.
Well, David, the top of the list that New Brighton came out with was actually church services. So that ought to spark a little flicker of recognition. Churches for church services, green churches for church services.
Well, it's about trying to engage the people already going to church, but also I think the way we've gone about it at New Brighton, that we've taken on doing a seasonal service, and as part of that. And that's been very much a non-traditional one, and we've been able to actually bring in people from the wider community. We had about 70 or 80 people there last Sunday in July for a winter service based around the climate change.
Did you hold that in the open air?
No, we didn't. We weren't brave enough, but we're certainly planning the spring and summer ones could well be in the open air.
Yeah, I see it's actually pretty close to the top of the list to try and have at least one open air service, which is,
I guess, thinking a beach one, yeah.
But not in the middle of winter.
No. We mightn't get many people.
The next thing that came up as a broad category after church services is it's called information, education and social care. So I think this is something that's absolutely critical for the life of any congregation, no matter what the issue. How do you propose to educate and inform, as well as do social caring around Green Church?
Well, how we did an event this year on climate change, and that was actually we hosted a book launch at New Brighton on Neil Dara's book, and we actually invited people from the community to come and speak, as well as the 3 Canterbury contributors to the book, and that was very well supported, yeah, and it was a way of the church again engaging with the community and
what a brilliant, innovative idea. I haven't read Neil's book, but I can imagine that it's ideally suited to that kind of church community interface launch.
Oh, it's a very good book, and it's even got a chapter about the original Walk for the Planet in it. So, but it's got quite a range of green church initiatives in it, where different congregations have done things, or they've done pilgrimages like Walk for the Planet. There was another pilgrimage in there as well, and someone was writing about organic farming and or organic gardening, and yeah, and people addressing what Pope Francis has said in his encyclical, and so it's just a whole range of things, mostly Catholics, but there was a Muslim writer and a Maori Christian writer and a Hindu writer, so there was quite a broad range of approaches to it.
But one of the things that really strikes a chord with me there is the fact that that little church at New Brighton basically was wiped out in the earthquake, wasn't it? So all of this has happened out of its church hall?
We've still got the hall and the op shop, but we lost the church building, and we have a temporary office. Well, when I say temporary, we've had it for about 2 years now. So how long is temporary? But yeah, we're eventually hoping to build a community house.
Right. You've still got that steeple though.
Yes, we've still got the steeple, and we've built a community garden around it. And we've got an 89-year-old gardener who doesn't attend our church. He's a member of the community who loves gardening, and he comes down and maintains it. But one of the aspects that we've done as part of meeting our Green Church objectives is that we installed a rainwater harvest tank on the op shop, which is supplying the garden.
Brilliant, brilliant. Also, it reminds me a little bit of the Dorothy and Ernest Willis down in Riverton, and that Riverton scene where they've got a lot of they wouldn't call it Green Church, but they got a lot of ecological awareness about the preservation of different kinds of old-style fruit trees, vegetables that are, in terms of the way in which food has become standardized through supermarkets, and you must have apples that conform to this shape and this color, and all the old varieties are dying out, and there are just so many areas in which church groups can get in and actually help around their own interests and hobbies of members. Peter Lane, in your church, it's sort of like a huge multicultural railway station on a Sunday morning, isn't it? Because you've got an English-speaking multicultural congregation, then is it the Tongan congregation, then the Samoan congregation, and all of these church services are taking place in a...
Yep, and this morning the English-speaking service was led by the Samoan minister. So it got a tad more chaotic than normal.
But some of the initiatives that have been going on there, though, fit the Green Church model, where you arrange things like collections for the benefit of other people who have social needs. Isn't there a new kitchen in there that's sort of devoted to
there's
all kinds of things?
When is something refurbished and when is it new? We have definitely upgraded the kitchen, and one of the things that we're using that kitchen for now is a morning tea drop-in session. A morning tea session that we call has simply become the hospitality group, because nobody ever got around to thinking of a name for it, but that's what everybody called it when they were thinking about how we could set this up. It's a community initiative. The community actually came to us and said, can we use your facility to do something along these lines, and we ended up sitting down with them and mapping out a program. So 10:30 Tuesday mornings. Anybody who's around the Manuo town centre and has the time and inclination descends on our church hall and has a cuppa and a sandwich or some cakes, or often there's extra things like spaghetti on toast or a bit of a salad or something, because all the food that gets served is actually donated by businesses in the community, by and large. And we sit down and we talk to each other. And
that's part of the philosophy of the social care that's mentioned. Information, education, social care.
Yeah.
Okay. So Peter, just to ask a very practical question about the sharing of resources.
Yeah.
How do you set about churches begin to share resources from Green Church? I mean, it's all very well putting an agenda out there and saying, oh, these are the questions that you should be asking, etc.
This is the whole reason why I'm working on a national body as an umbrella organisation, if you like, for it's a place to hold a repository of resources that can be used by the Green Church movement. It's a place to coordinate with the rest of the world and pick up their good ideas as well. I would hope that we get to a point in the not too distant future where we can hold an annual conference where we can showcase what people have done and find out what other people's good ideas are and network between the different communities, and where we can recognise excellence. We can give an award or whatever for the most significant innovation for the year, or project for the year. So that's why there's the two-pronged approach. There's the community, certainly the community-facing part of it, but then the coordination part of it is to make sure that we don't lose the good ideas that somebody has in Gore, but it's still applicable to Bluff, not Bluff, the other end of the country, Kaitaia.
One of the things that you've set up recently is actually in Kiwi Connection. You've set up a group called Green Church.
Yep.
And that's one mechanism for some sharing, because Kiwi Connection's got, it's got a reasonable number of members, but it's only the tip of the iceberg, if I can put it that way.
Yes, it is.
But
there's also a Facebook page, Green Churches International, which is meant to collect interest to provide a forum for discussion and sharing ideas in a more international context. So that's something else people can go and have a look for if they want, Green Churches International. And
would you like to share that onto my Facebook page, and then I'll get the link and we'll put it back into tonight's PDF and a few other things like that. David Hill, I'm just aware we're coming close to the end of time, and you've got some really interesting resources, and we've just created a zine for your, well, it's a kind of a mixture of Walk for Others, your blog, but that zine highlights what one person can do when they're willing to take a prophetic, and that means a kind of a public stance on doing things. And I think it's really helpful. It becomes, as Peter Lane suggested, an exemplar for others. What you've achieved in terms of promoting awareness has been extremely practical. Now, I'm going to flick the zine out through Kiwi Connection and into Facebook and so on, but do you have any comments that you'd like to make about how much fun you've had doing those sorts of things? I mean, it's not easy being a prophet, is it?
Well, you're the one calling me a prophet. I'm just doing what I do, I guess. I was in a situation where my doctor wanted to put me on cholesterol medication, and I figured, I'm only 40, I'm too young, but I've actually ended up on the medication anyway. But I just wanted a practical way to lose some weight, and I figured I've talked about losing weight for years, but it's never quite worked out. So let's do something really stupid, really crazy, so that I haven't got any excuse I can't get out of it. And being a journalist, I actually put it in print that I'd set this challenge for myself. So there was no going back.
No, you were caught.
I was caught. There was no. I had local MPs and out there making sure I was out walking and things like that. But it's just amazing the support that I got for it. It was just you just take it, and it's quite exciting to do it, and it's amazing what you can do when you put your mind to it.
Absolutely, and I think one of the really most creative things that I've seen is that as a result of that and sort of blogging and journalism and walking with your family, you've now started to create a thing called bantam theology. And I've highlighted bantam theology in your zine. And so I'm just aware that we have come to the end of our time. We've actually gone 5 minutes over. I would like to say thank you very much to both of you for coming in. We've moved up to 6-7 concurrent viewers. Thank you to the viewers for watching. We will this will be edited, so it won't be available for a day or so, but it will be back up in Kiwi Connection and on YouTube. And hopefully I'll be able to put it back into Google Plus as well. So thank you both. I'm really delighted to have been able to host you tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.